I'm Teresa Carraggio, and this is Third Paradigm. Today, I want to talk about Australia from some information sent to me by my wonderful viewer, Maria Sangiorgi, if I'm pronouncing that at all correctly. Maria has commented on the last episode where I talk about how all of this domestic terrorism in the U.S. seems to be leading towards disarmament of the people. And she said that she's always been so proud that in Australia they don't need guns to feel safe. But now she wonders. She wonders whether that being docile and acquiescent has led them into a place that they now cannot get out of. What Maria sent me was a documentary called Battleground Melbourne. And I watched it yesterday morning and I cried my way through it. I have one story in particular that I'm going to try to tell you about without sobbing, but I can't make any promises. I took breaks, I took deep breaths, I walked around. It is a very, very powerful documentary. And the reason to care about this, which I am ashamed to say, I had no idea. I had no idea what was happening in Australia. The reason to care isn't because it's going to happen to you, even though that is certainly true if nothing changes. The reason to care is because it did happen to them. And I think understanding the courage that they've had to stand up and to resist this despite the things that have been done to them is a lesson that we need to witness to and to give our respect to and understand that the same thing could be happening to us and we would not be faring any better. I absolutely 100% know that about where I live, that we would not be doing any better if we were put under the same conditions. So I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about some other things that people have sent me because I posted that I saw this movie on a few different places, and on Robert Malone's Substack, I got a response from Margaret Anna Alice, who has been doing a lot of COVID work, and she actually has a post on her Down Under post that she has a lot of links and a lot of different videos and has been in correspondence there. So I want to talk about that. And I want to end by talking about spirituality because people, we need it. Not some sweet little makes you sleep well at night kind of thing. We need the kind of real spirituality that gives you courage and certainty. Let's get started. Battleground Melbourne was produced by Topher Field, and the first thing you see on YouTube is a screen that says, "This material has been judged by the YouTube community to be offensive or inappropriate for some people, and age restrictions apply, and you have to click in order to see it." Now, since the entire film is one chair with a person in it and a blank background, and then news footage of the only violence being the police to protesters, then I'm not sure exactly what that says, but I think there's an admission right there. It opens with Craig Beckman in the black chair, and he talks about how the part that he played in what happened is something that he so regrets that he would do anything to make up for it. He would give his life to make up for it. And then he breaks down. You find out later that he is a former police officer who has resigned over this, as is another young woman that comes up later. It starts with clips from a number of different people, all different walks of life, men, women. There's a woman from Ireland, a man from Ghana, and they all talk about Melbourne and how it was voted the most livable city in the world 6 different times. And they talk about the start of this when their MP, Daniel Andrews, got on TV and said, we need 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We need everyone to stay inside and let us work this out and get the healthcare system up and running so that we can respond to this pandemic. And every one of them said, okay, that sounds reasonable. Sure, I care about other people. I care about our healthcare system. I want this to work. So we're in a situation we've never been in before, and that sounds reasonable. And as those 2 weeks turn into more and more, you see the start of what Craig calls the most insidious and diabolical game of Simon Says. Put your masks on. Take your mask back off. Stay inside. Go back outside. Open your business for 2 days. Close your business again. It becomes all of these orders that you can't keep up with, that every morning you have to watch the news to figure out what you're allowed to do that day. And then it becomes tactics of psychological warfare, where people are turned against each other and told not to trust each other and to inform if someone is actually getting together with other people next door. There's one huge apartment complex, like 5 big buildings, hundreds of people, and they surround it, and the police won't allow anyone in or out. So people are starving. There are babies that have no more formula. There was no notice given. The entire thing was just shut down, and it had stayed that way for 2 weeks. And then Victoria itself was surrounded by what they called a ring of steel, where no one was allowed to cross the border in or out. And food was running out in the supermarkets. They could be fined $5,000 for crossing that border. Around this time, protests start, and the protesters are arrested and given huge fines. And then they start bringing out rubber bullets and hitting those at close range and using tear gas. Later on, you see them bring out bearcats and sniper rifles. And this is a population that has not legally been able to own a weapon for decades. In a particularly horrific scene, the police chase them and they finally corral them into this canyon, and they're starting to just beat them and throw in the tear gas. And finally, some people in the front break through and everyone runs, but there's an older woman who can't keep up, and they tackle her to the ground and spray pepper spray directly into her face. And in some of the video footage, you hear protesters talking to police, where the protesters are saying, hey, I don't have any way to feed my family. And the police are saying, hey, I understand. My wife has lost her job and I've got to be here too because it's the only way that I can support my family. So you have 2 groups that are being pitted against each other based on economic needs. So when they say that people are placing money above lives, one of the things they point out is that economic activity is life. It is how you maintain all of those functions of having a roof over your head and food to cook for your family. And then there's the censorship of online communication. In one viral video clip, there is a pregnant mom who's arrested in front of her children for a Facebook post. There's one leader of an opposition political party, and she's taken off to solitary confinement for 22 days. And for the first 12, she is not allowed a TV or a book. So they keep ramping up what the penalties are. The penalties become $90,000 and up to 2 years in prison for things that can't even be defined, things that are offenses that have no definition, can be done at a whim, so that that opposition leader has to go into hiding. And the terrible isolation of this starts breaking people down. There are so many of the speakers who talked about someone they know not being able to take it anymore, or their children's friends not being with them anymore. The personal story that hit the hardest for me was one man who had 4 kids and a stepson and had some issues that he talked to his counselor about, but now could only talk on Zoom. And one day just sends her a message and said, "I'm sorry. Tell my kids that it's not their fault." But he forgets to turn off his location on his phone. And as he hears the train with its horn, she pulls him off of the tracks. You all need to see this for yourselves. And if there's one place that I disagree with the director, it's when he talks about that he believes that Daniel Andrews went so hard into the vaccines because he needed an exit strategy. I think that everything that led up to it was only to be an entry strategy into those vaccines. So we need to understand what's going on here. If there was any shred of doubt in my mind that this is a global agenda and everything is being planned, seeing what's happening in Australia has removed any possible doubt. Maria also told me about a very hopeful endeavor called Cafe Locked Out, which is on Rumble and started by a playwright and an actor who are gathering different stories of those who will not comply. And she told me about her daughter, who has made a video that's on Vimeo called Her Sound, Her Story on women in music in Australia. The trailer looks fantastic, and I can't wait to see it because I need something uplifting at this point. And then there is the indefatigable Margaret Anna Alice, who posts on Substack as Through the Looking Glass. She has an older post which is called Recommendations Roundup Number 2, the Down Under edition. It includes videos, articles, books, music, theater, TV shows. It includes all of these things that are compiled in one place, including 2 petitions for Queensland that her partners have also put together, asking for the science and requiring that of their governments on things like PCR testing and the masking and the lockdowns and the efficacy of those. I'd like to end by talking about spirituality because, as I've said, I don't think this train can be stopped until it crashes. So in looking at how that's going to come about, I don't think I have the courage that I saw the Australians have in that video. And I don't see the people around me right now having the courage to even look at what the truth is. But I think maybe there are resources that we don't know we have. My daughter is turning 30 next week, and as an early present to her, she went bungee jumping. And she said that her fiance thought she was strangely calm about this. And she answered that she had been thinking about all the brave things that she had done, the decision to get married, to go into bereavement counseling, all the decisions that she made during the lockdown and the pandemic, and all of those hard situations that she was able to survive and even thrive in. So I think that we also are a lot more courageous than we know. and that when the situation calls for it, we're going to find that courage. I don't know how this is going to end, but I know that it will, and I know that we're going to be in a better place than we ever could have imagined when we come out. I think I can only follow that up with this video, Are You Ready to Save the World? And this one, Waking the Dragon Mom. Thank you for being part of my community on YouTube, on Substack, and one day in the real world that we're going to reclaim. Thank you.